changing gears, pivoting. Maybe we could spend quite a few more classes on inquiry, etc. But it's probably the right time to um, stop using our intellect or stop using our faculty of reason and inquiry. I hope it got us somewhere. Um, as you know, the wise people spoke of Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. The Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, which is nothing but hearing, then interpretation and understanding, and then just merging or being in that what you reached. So Shravana Manana Nididhyasana is not different texts for Shravana, different texts for Manana. It's more about um, progress internally. So Shravana is inviting yourself into things that you don't know before. So it's useful to hear new knowledge, seek new knowledge, hear beautiful things. What Manana is about, do I have a personal understanding of that? Is it real for me? Uh, can I progress from my current reality to make what is being said as real for me? Because in Shravana, it's still not real for me, it's passive to me. I am engaged with authority. Krishna is telling me something beautiful. Angiras told me something beautiful. Adishankara told me something beautiful. It's still passive for me, but because of reverence and shraddha and respect, I know that what that wise person says must have credence to it. So I'm listening. But in Manana, we divorced ourselves from authority, saying, what use is all that if it doesn't speak to me, it doesn't tickle me, I don't understand it from my own personal level. So that requires questioning arguments, debates, leaving authority, he said, she said. And that's a very important point in edification to personally understand something. It's okay to get into the engine room if that be your way to understand. It's okay to follow another technique if that be your way to understand. But the point is understanding. And then with understanding, uh, you feel you're almost there. But sometimes it's not a steady state feeling for us because we're distracted by the clouds of our own thought and our schedule and our daily routines and rituals and duties and obligations. How do I stay in that understanding? Not even using my intellect. I understood using my faculty of the intellect because I'm smart. I applied logic. I applied synthesis. I applied amalgamation. I applied synergizing all these different pockets of knowledge. But it was still a method of the intellect. We applied our intellect. We tried to squeeze our intellect. To say, even last week, we analogize the dream state to the waker state, and we're using our intellect and our smarts to try to put two and two together, saying with what authority, what is it that I can call real except my own a priori awareness? Everything else seems to be real upon condition. So it's all a process of thinking, thought. But after that is settled down, and after we've drawn some insights from the engine room of the intellect, it's time to be quiet, still. If if our intellect has pointed us to, if these sessions of inquiry has pointed us to that unadulterated, still pure awareness as we defined it, that always exists, which is not tainted by the overlays of the thoughts and mind and memory and body and the world and the change and the samsara, all of it is witnessed by it, but it is not it. The only place where the true I resides is in that self. But that I is not the localized I. It's that I, when combined with matter, which is the overlays of the mind and memory and thoughts, the I takes the form of the mind, and therefore it feels like the localized I. That's what we've inquired so far. We applied Viveka to separate that localized I as the non-local I plus the contents that make it local, which is my thoughts and my memories and my personality, my background, my religion, my caste, my this, my that, all the identities we've gathered makes the I feel local to that identity and gives this life to animation, an animated form of me. But through inquiry, we asked ourselves whether there is this pure awareness which is untouched yet by the thoughts and mind. What would be the nature of that I before it before it masquerades as this limited local I being separated being called me? So we try to inquire a priori to separation, which is the unseparated, akhanda, indivisible I, right? Now, again, is that memory? Is that something in our memory that we've understood? Or can we Is there a possibility to reside in that pure awareness, pure stillness? And then when the balance tilts to your residence being that ever-present stillness, then the mind and body doesn't disappear, but you start seeing the mind and body as appearances and disappearances in that stillness that you are, as compared to being that dynamic, changing thoughts and trying to seek the self. You become the stillness from which the mind and the world and the samsara appear and disappear. In both cases, this is happening. It's your viewpoint, your perception that has changed. So you are always still, and from that stillness, you become the witness of all movement. And then we ended last class of inquiry by saying, when you are anchored on that stillness, that is a sthita prajna, the person of that steadiness of that wisdom, not the eureka moment. Eureka, through inquiry, I understood the self. That could be a spike of wisdom through the intellect. But if it's not born out of intellect, if you become that stillness, then it is steady, a person of steady wisdom, a person of steady knowledge. It's called sthita prajna. Sthita means steady, prajna means knowledge, a person of steady knowledge. Steady knowledge is not born out of intellect. Steady knowledge is born out of being steady. And then we ended last class by saying when you become that still aware being, the power that you lend to that which changes thoughts and memories and emotions and the world and these projections and illusions and Maya, it starts losing power. Because we said last time, Maya thrives on the power of reality you give it. Maya thrives on the power of reality that you give it. When Maya is real, everything in Maya is real. Like when you're in a dream, everything in dream is real. When you're out of the dream, you also remove the power associated with that Maya of the dream and you call it an illusion. Similarly, when you stay in that stillness of what you truly are, you're also removing the power of Maya. And to that person comes the powerful, profound realization of Jagat Mithya. When you are able to see that it's the power of reality that you give to Maya that makes Maya real, and we are able to see when you draw that power away, the Maya also becomes weak, then you realize that since Brahma Satya, Jagat Mithya, it's conditional to the power I give it. And when you're convinced of being that stillness, the power that you give to change samsara naturally reduces. Anyway, right? So we are moving from inquiry to that insight. Inquiry is insight. And nididhyasana is staying, steadiness, stillness. And so nididhyasana can never be done through logical thought, getting to the engine room, putting equations and arriving, deriving, induction, deduction. All that's the faculty of the intellect. Nididhyasana can be done by looking into the mirror and constantly, almost a form of meditation of who you already are. Remember, because the self is not something that we have gone in a journey to acquire. The self is something that you are. And it's the ignorance of the fact that you are not is what we are trying to dispel. So you are meditating on that which you are, not that which you're trying to acquire, which itself is great power. So to do that, we, as you might have seen on chat, are going to use the beautiful, profound text, which I've always said treat with caution in this class, always been skeptical about taking up in this class, as some of you who have attended for a few years would testify, because it's a text which is unlike any other text. It is not even a text of some author. It is a text that is a mirror to your own self. In a way, when you get into the flow state in reading Ashtavakra, it is not you and the PDF file as two different things. It is a mirror of yourself. It is your own self speaking to you in poetic words, right? It is just words that describe what you know. You're not acquiring something by reading Ashtavakra Gita. You're not trying to understand something by reading Ashtavakra Gita. It gives words and clarity to what you deeply, intuitively sense as real. That is you. So you might have seen as you joined the class, this little paragraph that I put here in the first slide that you will see every week for the next few weeks. It's a beautiful para which says the Ashtavakra Gita. You can see your screen if you're in your computer. The Ashtavakra Gita is not a text to be analyzed like an argument or memorized like scripture. It is a mirror, silent, clear, and uncompromising. To study it is to sit before that mirror, not with the tools of your intellect, but with the stillness of your heart. Come to it not as a scholar, but as a lover, longing, curious, and ready to be undone. Let the words wash over you like waves, even if they leave no mark on the sand of memory. Understanding is not the goal, direct recognition is. There is no drama here, no gods, no demons, no wars, not even Kurukshetra, no confusion, no clarity. It's just quiet, radiant insistence. You're not the mind, you're not the body. You are that which observes. You are free today, now. Let that echo not just in your mind, but in the pauses between your thoughts, because those pauses are the most precious. If you can, if you can recognize yourself in between thoughts, that is who you truly are. It's thoughts that's the distraction. The silence between thoughts is real. So approach each verse like a flute note, empty but full of music. Let it pierce through the noise, the doubts, the effort. Let it be what it is, a song for one who's ready to wake up from the dream of separateness. So sit with it, listen, and if you are very still, you may just hear your own true self speaking, not Ashtavakra speaking. There's a beautiful line here saying, let the words of Ashtavakra Gita wash over you like waves, even if they leave no mark on the sand of memory. Don't try to remember these classes. Don't try to take notes. Don't try to understand. Don't try to remember verses or mug up slokas. Don't even care about what happens in each chapter. What's the title, the theme of each chapter? Let it just gush onto us like waves, even without having any imprint in the sands of memory, because we're trying to recognize, not remember. It's a very different mindset. And I'm harping on this because I want us to be on the same wavelength as we start Ashtavakra Gita. When you read the Bhagavad Gita, you you will remember at the end of the Gita, the initial chapters, this happened, there's a storyline to it. Arjuna was confused, then Krishna came up, he said this, she said this. Chapter 18 is about this, chapter 14 about this. It's memory. There is no memory needed in Ashtavakra Gita. There is, because if recognition is instant, there is no need to remember. Once recognition happens, you are that. What is that? To remember that I'm that. That is happening through intellect. Self realization is not an insight stored in memory, it is pre insight, it's a priori. It's before the mind comes and encumbers the pure awareness that you are. So, this is a totally different ball game. Nididhyasana is recognizing you, yourself, in each sloka that we read, not trying to submit to authority of Ashtavakra. It's a poem. It's a poem where you read a poem, your heart tingles to as if something deep in your heart that has blossomed, though it's another person describing something. So treat it like a poem, a mirror that makes your heart tingle. And try to listen to it through the silence in our heart, not through the smarts of our intellect. It's difficult for us. We've never done something like that. So once we do this, that is real Advaitic meditation, is having utmost stillness of heart, utmost stillness of being, even in the most dynamic actions in the world. So I was having a conversation with a friend who was visiting me, and this is not a diversion. We're going to get to Ashtavakra Gita. So he was telling me, Aditya, I'm really confused between this Krishna and Rama. Both of them are such different personality types. I often think in the same situation, Ram would have done something so different, Krishna would have done something so different. Both of them are gods. I like both of them. Who do I follow? Ram listened to his father. He's so truthful. Krishna said so many lies because he was tactful. In today's age, how can someone live like Ram? But just because Krishna lied, I don't feel like lying. Whose behavior was right? Then the interesting thing is what Ram and Krishna chose to do are not the learning points to us. An intellect can clearly find areas and loopholes to dismiss both their actions as virtue and vice. Ram chose to listen to his father, not his people, while going to the forest. But Ram chose to listen to the people and not his wife while sending her out onto the forest later. I've heard people have read blog posts about Ram and Krishna were humans in their avatars, and what is there for us to be learned is not what they ended up doing or behaving or actions they take. That is different for each of us in our own context. What is common between both is the stillness from which these thoughts and actions are born. Both Ram and Krishna, absolutely still. In between war, in betrayal, in love, in hate, they are absolutely still. That's why they are atmajnanis, they are brahmacharis, they are self-realized in a way. So it's that stillness from which thoughts and actions emerge. Those thoughts and actions are not what the learning point is. It's that absolute clarity from which these thoughts and actions emerge, which was the common point of both, right? So we are not trying to focus on moral values in Ashtavakra, in Nididhyasana. We're not trying to focus on what's the right decision to make, what's the right action. We're beyond that in Nididhyasana. We're trying to use Ashtavakra as a mirror to recognize our stillness in those verses. So it's you are Ashtavakra. You are Ashtavakra is just a proxy, is a surrogate for what you are, what you know you are. And and therefore Nididhyasana is a celebration. Nididhyasana is a celebration to revel in what you already are and revel in what you already know you are. So therefore, it's recognition that matters. Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions as we move on?
Aditya, one question, Nikhil here. What is the literal meaning of or the contextual meaning of recognition here? Unfortunately, I didn't get it well. So, what do we say when we say get the recognition here of the text? What do you actually mean? Could you please elaborate further?
Yeah, it's a great question. What is recognition as opposed to, say, understanding, right? Because you can say, I understand what Ashtavakra says. I don't recognize that. What does that mean? Or the other way. Recognition, Nikhil, in what I said means as we go through Ashtavakra, can you can you see that as a description of you as compared to a description of a wise person, an elevated person, a self-realized person, etc.? Can you recognize you in that description? You in your true form? Because as we know, if we are describing physical looks, each of us are different. If we are describing emotions, we come closer, slightly closer, right? That's why when I describe fear, you may say, I understand that too. When I describe ecstasy, you may say, I understand that too. But it's still separate. But we're talking about our true unadulterated self. Therefore, it cannot be something that we cannot recognize. It is us. And so if we change our mindset and frame while we go through Ashtavakra as not something that Janaka and Ashtavakra are talking and we are taking notes or trying to interpret them, but rather they are talking about me to me. Or even better, it is not even them talking. It is a mirror of my own soul, of my own self that is just being expressed through words. Then I'm trying to recognize myself in the truth as compared to saying, let me understand and then I'll go think about it. It's a direct recognition instead of saying, let me understand what they're saying and later reflect on it. It's okay. You don't need to understand or even have Ashtavakra in memory. But does it feel like it is revealing what you are? So that's a recognition. Okay. So Ashtavakra Gita is nobody knows who wrote it. Nobody knows whether it's actual conversation between Janaka and Ashtavakra. We're just going to go with that point of view. Nobody knows when it was written. Somewhere probably 1,000 1,600 years ago, maybe we can say. But we do know that it's attributed as a conversation between sage Janaka, the famous Raja Rishi, the philosopher sage, who cannot be a different character, who cannot be more different than Ashtavakra. Janaka is the emperor. He has duties, obligations, but he's a philosopher sage. In his absolute stillness, he is dynamic in action. Ashtavakra is a self-realized master. He is in absolute stillness himself. So when it comes to that, who am I? They are one and the same. Both are still. How does it matter if I am absolutely still, whether I have duties or no duties, if I have to act or not act? I continue to be still, isn't it? Even when I'm in the thick of things or when I'm in my own company. It doesn't matter. So Janaka is a self-realized master, but also a king as per his duties. Ashtavakra is a sage. Now, Ashtavakra, some of you may know, to just set this up, he symbolizes, his name Ashtavakra means eight deformities in his body, eight bends. The literal meaning is Vakra. Ashta means eight bends in his body. So he was born with eight deformities. But a lot of people say these Ashtavakra, though he was deformed physically, the physical deformities are irrelevant. He is a symbol that he is a symbol of that which transcends form. The fact that the self is untouched by appearance, limitation, age, deformities. It is independent of looks and thoughts and emotions. So he symbolizes pure jnana, the unshakable wisdom. Whereas Janaka is the realized ruler. He symbolizes someone who with all his wealth and power and responsibilities and positions and duties, has only one question that always occupies him. Who am I and how do I become free? So he represents mumukshutva, right? By the time he has the conversation with Ashtavakra, it's a guru-guru conversation. But Janaka, as a philosopher king, represents the mumukshu, right? The fiery um, last stage of Advaitic wisdom, which is the fiery question of the only thing that matters is liberation. And Ashtavakra symbolizes jnana itself. So there are a few stories about Ashtavakra. We don't need to go in these in detail. It is said that Ashtavakra was born to sage Kahoda and Sujata, right? Both were sages and wise people. Of course, these are all passionate stories. uh, Many could have been made up, but it is said that even when Ashtavakra was in the womb of his mother, during one of the Vedic ritual, Kahoda, his father, um, was corrected by Ashtavakra from the womb because the father was doing the ritual properly, but he uttered something wrongly or something like that. And Ashtavakra corrected his dad from the womb, to which the deeply embarrassed father, Kahoda, cursed his unborn child, saying, since you have dared to correct your father while still in the womb, you shall be born with eight deformities in your body. So mean, isn't it? It shows that the great sage Kahoda had his ego so much intact. What's the point of great Vedic mastery if your ego is so fragile? So that's how he was born with deformities. Then there is a sloka when the story when Ashtavakra grew up, the first time he met King Janaka. So Ashtavakra, when he grew up, had a brilliant mind but faced a lot of ridicule for his appearance. So it is said that when he was 12 years old, he heard that his father had been insulted and defeated in a debate in the court of the great king Janaka. Since Janaka was a renowned patron of the Vedas and knowledge, he had these debates, intellectual debates in his court, and Ashtavakra, heard his father had been insulted and defeated. So, determined to restore his father's honor, Ashtavakra walked into Janaka's court, still a child and still very visibly deformed. All the other scholars in the court laughed at him and they said, what can this crooked boy teach us? And unfazed by them, Ashtavakra said something stunning. It's a very famous line by Ashtavakra. He said, I thought this was a gathering of wise men, but it seems I've entered a cobbler's market. You judge a person by the skin, not by the self that we are. And the court felt silent. Janaka, the king, moved by the boy's confidence and wisdom, invited him to participate in the debate. And Ashtavakra spoke with such clarity and depth that he silenced every scholar in the hall. Janaka was so impressed by wisdom from Ashtavakra, that the depth at which no one else could get to, that he asked immediately to the 12-year-old to want to become his disciple. The king wanted to become the disciple of the 12-year-old. That's why he's Rajarishi, right? Rajarishi is a king. The merit of the argument, the merit of what Ashtavakra preached was so high that the king was ready to surrender to wisdom. That's why he's Rajarishi. The preamble is beautiful. I would love for you to, because whatever we fall in love with, we have special ears to hear that with the heart, isn't it? As compared to something terse, another text, another book, another thing. So if we fall in love with Nididhyasana, Ashtavakra Gita, just the song of self-realization, then it's poetry as compared to just words from a page. So the Shanti mantra that we'll be using for this series would be the Shanti mantra from Isavasya Upanishad, which, as many of you may know, is a very profound Shanti mantra, befitting the nature of Nididhyasana that we are doing. If you don't know this, repeat after me. It's very famous from Isavasya Upanishad. It's Shloka 0, which is the Shanti mantra invocation. Before Isavasya Upanishad starts with Isavasavidam Sarvam Yatkinja Jagatyam Jagat, this is prior to that. This is the invocation. Om. I will say it, repeat after me. From next class, we will say it together. Om. Om. Om Purnam Adha Purnam Idham Om Purnamadha Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate Purnameva Avashishyate. Once fully, without repetition. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Now, this sloka is that of incredible, profound wisdom or source of good Vedanta satire. Either it means something or it means nothing. So, if you read it with the intellect, it means nothing. That is whole. This is whole. From the whole emerges. When the whole is taken from the whole alone remains. So that seems like satire, isn't it? We don't need to interpret that now. We will recognize it through Ashtavakra Gita. So if you can learn the sloka, simple sloka, do. We're going to repeat it in classes often. The text that I've chosen to for Ashtavakra is, of course, there are many famous, not too many. Ashtavakra is not that recognized a text, but the interpretation, the English translation that I like is from Bart Marshall. Now, if you have your own version of Ashtavakra or PDF or book, feel free to use that. I can share this version in the group as well, as this is what we'll be using. Um, we're not so we are not going to spend a lot of time on the Sanskrit versions. As I said, this is not about understanding or remembering. This should be like a flow of waves. So we're just going to read the English translation. So I wanted a translation that has that beautiful flow. So Bart Marshall's version is really beautiful. But of course, Bart Marshall's is not the most famous version. There are more versions that are more widely circulated. Any version is fine. It's still just a translation of the original, but we're going to use this. Bart Marshall has a beautiful preface of Ashtavakra. We're just going to quickly read his preface. Again, remember, this is not meaning or Aditya's take. This is Bart Marshall's take, right? About Ashtavakra Gita and why he chose to translate Ashtavakra Gita. He says in Vietnam, when I was 21, a hand grenade and mortar round, the circumstances made it difficult to determine which, blew me into a clear and brilliant blackness. For the next 37 years, that glimpse of infinite emptiness, so intimate, so familiar, kept me looking almost obsessively in esoteric books and far corners for an explanation of myself. Then, suddenly, the veil, as they say, was lifted. A few months after that occurrence, as my interest in reading began to slowly return, I found myself drawn mainly to the sayings and writings of old masters. What did the Buddha have to say? What did Christ have to say? Lao Tzu, Patanjali. I wanted to read them with new eyes. Oddly, in those 37 years of seeking, I had never read the Ashtavakra Gita, and indeed was barely aware of its existence. Then recently, as I sat at the bedside of a dying friend and teacher, another friend placed it in my hands. I opened it and was astonished. Here, in one concise volume, was all that needed to be said. I immediately acquired other versions and pored over them. Each had its good points, but none of them spoke the way my inner ear was hearing. See the beautiful words. None of them spoke the way my inner ear was hearing. His inner ear was hearing what it already is, right? So that is true. The words, he says, did not do justice to what his inner ear was hearing. The literal transcriptions from Sanskrit were valuable because that was what alone was there, right? The transliterations. The literal transcriptions from Sanskrit were valuable as reference, but required patient study to understand. English translations by Indian scholars made the meaning more clear, but tended to lack certain rhythm, poetry, and nuance of language I felt need of. Translations from native English speaking scholars were better in this regard, but sometimes ranged too far from the original or just didn't hit the notes that I was hearing inside. Then one day, I wrote down a verse the way I heard it in my inner ear. I liked what I read. It was infectious. I couldn't stop. There are few conventions worth mentioning. Capitalized words like self, awareness, God, absolute, consciousness, knowledge, witness, that, this, void, light, all, one, everything, nothing, no thing, being, me, you, it, himself, bliss, supreme, unity, truth. They're all used as synonyms. All these words are same, synonyms, he's saying. Although sometimes in subtle context and ultimately non existent, differences may be intended. These words all point to what is the true nature of reality. The words universe, the non capitalized words basically, the words universe, world, creation, illusion are synonyms referring to the apparently real manifest world of physical objects, people, personal self, ideas, thoughts, gods, knowledge, concepts, myths, religions, history, memories, emotions, time, space, everything we perceive through the mind, born out of thought, as we have said in this class, right? Whatever is born out of thought, through the mind and senses, including the mind and senses themselves. Maya. Synonymous words and phrases used to denote a person who has realized the self, knows the truth, who perceives the real include wise one, desireless one, liberated soul, great soul, sage, yogi. So when we see all this in the text that we're going to read, they all mean the same. Now, that's fine. Now he beautifully talks about the book. He says, the Ashtavakra is a Gita is an ancient spiritual document of great purity and power. Pure, sorry, pure because it is relentlessly one pointed. Pure because it's relentlessly one pointed. Every word is aimed at triggering self realization. No suggestions for self improvement, no rules for moral behavior, no practical wisdom for daily life. Imagine the courage you have to have when you're writing a book these days to say there is no suggestions for self improvement, no rules for moral behavior, no practical wisdom for life. Please don't buy the book, right? Because this book is beyond that. That doesn't mean self improvement is not useful, but this is not the place for that. It is powerful because the mere reading or repeated reading of it can be enough to send a ripe mind reeling into truth. Little is known about the Ashtavakra Gita. Ashtavakra is a name that appears in Indian lore, but almost certainly he did not write it. The author, likely an anonymous sage, merely uses the characters of Ashtavakra and King Janaka to set up a classic dialogue between a guru and disciple, which quickly becomes a guru-guru dialogue. However, However, because after the first salvo of wisdom from Ashtavakra, Janaka himself realizes his true self, and from then on, they get into an Advaitic jam session of sorts, of the highest sort. Because of this, some translators have done away with dialogue format and attributed everything to Ashtavakra. Indeed, since all verses of the Ashtavakra Gita exist at the highest possible level of spoken wisdom, it would appear meaningless to attribute some to the teacher and some to his newly enlightened disciple. There is nevertheless a storyline set up in the Gita, and for me, it goes something like this, right? We don't need to go through this. We're going to read through the chapters anyway. But let's just, in the context of doing justice to the preface, probably just read through it. So, chapter 1, it all starts with King Janaka asking the sage Ashtavakra how he can attain knowledge, detachment, and liberation. Ashtavakra tells him. And chapter 2, it works. Upon hearing Ashtavakra's words, Janaka realizes his true nature. Done, matter over in chapter 2. Enraptured, he describes the joy and wonder of this new state. Chapter 3, Ashtavakra is delighted for Janaka, but sees inconsistencies. He fires off a series of confrontational verses about attachment to worldly pleasure. Janaka, in chapter 4, asserts that the Lord of the universe can do as he pleases. Chapter 5, Ashtavakra does not disagree, but in a terse 4 verses points to the next step, disillusion. Chapter 6, Janaka says, I know that already, matching him in style and number of verses. Chapter 7, unable to leave it at that, however, Janaka goes on to further describe his enlightened state. Chapter 8, still hearing too much I in Janaka's language, Ashtavakra instructs him in the subtleties of attachment and bondage, including the attachment and bondage of self realization. Chapter 9, Ashtavakra continues to describe the way of true detachment. Chapter 10, Ashtavakra hammers away at the folly of desire, no matter how elevated or how subtle. Chapter 11, Ashtavakra further describes the state of desirelessness to which he points. Chapter 12, Janaka, by describing the state of timeless stillness in which he now finds himself. Chapter 13, Janaka, having been instructed by Ashtavakra in chapter 1 to be happy, reports that he indeed is in this new state. Chapter 14, Janaka then summarizes his exalted state with calm indifference now, not the jubilance before. Chapter 15, impressed but not through teaching, Ashtavakra relentlessly points to the vast emptiness of the self. Chapter 16, Ashtavakra attacks the futility of effort and futility of knowing. 17, Ashtavakra describes the nature of one who is truly free. Finally, in 18, Ashtavakra hits him with everything he's got. 100 verses of pure non-duality. Wow, that should be fun for nerds like us, isn't it? If this doesn't do it, nothing will. Chapter 19, it works. Janaka no longer describes his enlightened state, but can only speak in questions revealing absence. How beautiful. Chapter 20, finally, in the final flurry of questions pointing only at their own meaninglessness. How beautiful, right? In the final flurry of questions pointing only at their own meaninglessness, Janaka burns off the last vestiges of personhood and enters absolute dissolution. He ends with the only possible thing left to be said, which is no more can be said. Ashtavakra smiles, approves, nods approvingly, and says no more. True self realization has nothing to say, sir. No more can be said. If in chapter 2, Janaka has said that, it would have been over there. Anyway, we did read a few slokas from chapter 20 last time, remember? That was the final flurry of questions pointing at their own meaninglessness. That's Ashtavakra starting. I know we've had a long intro. We do have some time left in the class, so we will begin the first chapter today. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions before we start chapter 1? Anything to add about Ashtavakra? Questions, feelings? You're afraid to do Ashtavakra Gita? You're excited to do Ashtavakra Gita? What is it that you want? Maybe different in this class? As we do Ashtavakra Gita, how are you going to engage with it? Any thoughts, questions? Feel free to. Because now we're going to get into the poetic rhythm of Ashtavakra Gita. Find that in chapter 1, all of life's advice, how to be happy, all the things that trouble us, is answered in the very first verse by Ashtavakra Gita. The entire text after that, for 20 chapters, doesn't talk about, as Bart Marshall said, self-improvement or tips and tricks about how to stay calm, happy. It describes the state. That's why recognition is beautiful. It describes who you are, right? So keep that in mind as we read. Let's start. Janaka starts. Ashtavakra Gita, chapter number 1, verse number 1. The great sage Janaka says, Master, how is knowledge to be achieved? Detachment acquired, liberation attained. Sage Ashtavakra says, to be free, Janaka, shun the experiences of the senses like poison. Turn your attention to forgiveness, sincerity, kindness, simplicity, truth. That's it. This sloka, 1.2, is all Ashtavakra says in the entire conversation. That is something approximating being something in the world. Because Janaka's question starts with freedom. He said, to be free in the world, to be ever happy, shun the experiences of senses like poison, turn your attention to virtues, which is, we call them virtues, it's a state of being, which is forgiveness, sincerity, kindness, simplicity, truth, path of Shreyas instead of path of praise. Right? That's it. That's all he would say. Now let's go on. 1.3. Why? Because you are not the Panchabhutas, the earth, the water, the fire, or air. That may make up your body, but you're not that. Okay? I'm not going to stop between lines, which I sometimes do because it may break the flow here, right? I'm just going to continue. You're not the earth, water, fire, or air, nor are you empty space. Liberation is to know yourself as awareness alone, the witness of all of these. Abide in awareness with no illusion of person. You will be instantly free and at peace. Janaka, you have no caste or duties. You are invisible, unattached, formless. You are the witness of all that are visible, attached, and informed. So be happy. Right and wrong, pleasure and pain exist in the mind only. They are not your concern. You neither do nor enjoy. You are free. You are the solitary witness of all that is. Forever free. Your only bondage is not seeing this. You are the solitary witness of all that is, forever free. Your only bondage is not seeing this. The thought, I am the doer, is the bite of a poisonous snake. To know I do nothing is the wisdom of faith. Be happy. A single understanding, I am the one awareness, consumes all suffering in the fire of an instant. Be happy. You are unbounded awareness, bliss, supreme bliss, in which the universe appears like the mirage of a snake in a rope. So be happy. It is true what they say. You are what you think. If you think you are bound, you are bound. If you think you are free, you are free. You are self, the solitary witness. You are perfect, all pervading, one. You are free, desireless, forever still. The universe is but a seeming in you. Meditate on this. I am awareness alone, unity itself. Give up the idea that you are separate, a person, that there is a within and a without. You have long been bound thinking, I am a person. Let the knowledge I am awareness alone be the sword that frees you. You are now and forever free, luminous, transparent, still. The practice of meditation keeps one in bondage. You are pure consciousness, the substance of the universe. The universe exists within you. Don't be small minded. You are unconditioned, changeless, formless. You are solid, unfathomable, cool. Desire nothing. You are consciousness. That which has form is not real. Only the formless is permanent. Once this is known, you will not return to illusion. Just as a mirror exists, born within and without, the image reflected. Just as a mirror exists, born within and without the image reflected, the Supreme Self exists, both within and without the body. Just as the same space exists both within and without a jar, the timeless, all pervasive One exists as totality. That's chapter 1, where Ashtavakra is getting warmed up. There are two things I want to bring to your attention here. Two slokas. Each of it is a gem. Yeah. One is 1.11, 1.11. Ashtavakra says something that we have talked about in the last class as well. He says, if in 1.10, he says, if your unbounded awareness, in which the universe appears like a mirage of a snake in a rope, be happy. What does he say that? If you see a rope as a snake, you are in bondage. Everything is true for you. If you see a rope as a rope, you are not in bondage. You're always free. In both the cases, the snake never existed. And then he draws this beautiful Advaitic, profound, which answers us the question of why is there Maya? Why did the earth? Okay, I understand the self of everything, but why does the universe exist? He says, it is true what they say, you are what you think. If you think you are bound, you are bound. If you think you are free, you are free. There is enormous wisdom in this line. It is too simple to sound profound, but it is eternally profound, this line. At the end of the day, there cannot be a simpler definition of the entire Advaitic wisdom than this. Therefore, even Jagat Mithya is answered here. If you think you are bound, you are bound. If you think you are free, you are free. The sage knows he is free, he is the eternal self. There is no question of Jagat Mithya. We know that we are bound. This is real, that is real. So we are eternally bound. That is one beautiful sloka. The other one, as I was reading it, I'm just probably telling you, as I was reading it, what did the mirror point, my own mirror point to me as something that tickled a beautiful note inside, right? I would love for you to share it as well. He's saying in 1.15 here, 1.15, you are now and forever free, luminous, transparent, still. The practice of meditation keeps one in bondage. Or what does he mean by that? Saying, you are now forever free. It is knowing that you are already free. What else is needed? Where is effort coming in? Where is practice coming in? Where is rituals coming in? All that is only holding you bondage. When I say you are free, you want to close your eyes and conjure something resembling freedom in your mind and thinking that's what the wise people are pointing us towards. All that is only holding us back. You are free. If you know that, you know it. If you don't know, you don't know it. You can't not know it and meditate yourself into knowing it. You know it. Right? It's very beautiful. Very difficult to describe it in words. Let's move on. If you want to contribute to this discussion, to something that a verse that jumped up to bring joy to your heart, or the mirror that poetically made you recognize yourself in it, tell us or put it on chat. But I wanted to conclude by saying, think through what Nididhyasana is. How do we recognize in Ashtavakra's passage, not as Ashtavakra's words, but that tickling, that feeling in us that I'm looking at a mirror beyond the distractions of my mind and the duties of life and the samsaras and the obligations I've entered. I've done a lot of shravana in my life, gathered a lot of thoughts, but never taken it to its own conclusion of recognition. I stop acquisition of knowledge with acquisition of knowledge, buy new books, read new articles. Sometimes I do manana to understand. But this hard hitting mirror of absolute direct aparoksha perception, that is Nididhyasana. And that's what Ashtavakra we're going to strive to do. We just got started today, warmed up. We're going to continue going through the chapters next week. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, reach out to us in the chat. I'll see you all next Sunday. Thank you all. Have a great week ahead.